So we're going to look at the ligaments of the metacarpophalangeal joint. We'll start out by putting in the collateral ligaments, called collateral because they're found on both sides of a joint. So that would be the collaterals. Then we should put in the suspensory ligament. Originates as one band in the proximal area of MC3 on the palmar face, but then divides into individual parts that insert onto each of the proximal sesamoids, and then sends off a secondary branch from each sesamoid that passes over the medial and lateral aspect of P1 and P2 to insert onto the extensor process of P3. So here's the suspensory ligament. Then we put in the intersesmoidian, which is combining both sesamoids so that they really function as one individual unit. So that's the intersesmoidian. And then we're on the on the distal region of the sesamoids. We begin with the short sesamoidian, which run at an angle from each proximal sesamoid on the distal border at an angle to the medial or lateral side of of P1. So that's the short sesamoidian. Then at the same level we have the cruciate or deep sesamoidian, which forms an X. The band or strap from the medial sesamoid passes to the lateral side distal border, proximal border of P1 on the palmar face. So from the medial to the lateral, from the lateral to the medial, and this is the deep sesamoidian. Or cruciate because it's shaped like an X, or Butler calls it the X ligament of the joint. Then superficial to that we have the middle sesamoidian. So there's two branches that pass down the palmar face of P1. If you look at the bone, you'll find that there are roughened areas that this ligament attaches to, and then it terminates on the bottom third of P1. That's the middle sesamoidian, also known as the V ligament. And then superficial to that we have superficial to that we have the Y sesamoidian, also called the superficial sesamoidian. So it's lying directly on top of the V, and has the same shape, but it crosses over the joint and inserts onto the proximal palmar face of P2. So this is the superficial. Commonly known as the Y ligament of the joint. So if you look at these, we have the suspensory, which is pulling up on the proximal sesamoids, and then we have these other ligaments pulling down on the sesamoids. So here we have the collateral, then we have the short and the deep, which are really at the same level within the limb. And then superficial to that we have the V, and then superficial to that we have the Y. You can see how the V and the Y are quite a bit longer. This is the superficial. It's called a Y because it's shaped like a Y. And then the middle is also called the V ligament because it's shaped more like a V. But the short, the cruciate, better label that one. The short, the cruciate, the middle, and the superficial are all counteracting the pull of the suspensory ligament. So we also need to put in the palmar annular ligament. While it's not technically part of the joint, it's in this region. It's superficial to the soft tissue that runs down the back of the leg. You think of it like a zap strap holding everything in place. So that they don't pop off the groove formed by the intersesmoidian. And we also need to put in the capsular ligament of the joint, which has to have quite a bit of excess material to allow for the full range of motion of this joint on the dorsopalmar plane. This joint will flex about 180 degrees, so there has to be excess tissue to allow for that. And this, think of this as a rubber boot which encapsulates the whole joint and encloses the joint and contains the synovial fluid. So that is the capsular ligament. And this other one is the annular ligament. And that takes care of the capsular, the annular, the long, and the short of the metacarpophalangeal joint.